Very good morning to everyone. I'm Zahid Mansoor. I'm studying Masters of Professional Accounting in Charles Darwin University. My student ID is 332109. Today, I'm welcoming you to the presentation session on my placement. And before starting, I want to express my heartfelt gratitude to our Honorable Course Coordinator, Ms. Rupali Misro, and Honorable Placement Officer, Janine Bowen. Without their help, without their suggestion and assistance, I could not have done anything regarding the placement. All of us, we know that placement is a very important part of the last semester because placement allows us to do 300 hours internship in a business organization, especially in the accounting department, so that we can understand the work culture of Australia, and we can understand how the accounting theory are applicable in the day-to-day business operation. I'm very lucky that that I could do my placement. In the traditional credit union, which is known as TCU in Darwin. In Darwin, their head office is just in front of the Casuarina post office and beside of the police station. And I really find myself very much privileged to do my 300 hours placement in traditional credit union, because it is a completely dedicated banking service for the Northern Territory. So today I will try to cover my presentation on the topics, and these are the company profile, how many branches and ATMs are being had by the TCU, the organogram of TCU, their core businesses, role of the accounting department in traditional credit union, and my major responsibilities, especially what I did in these 300 hours in traditional credit union. Then I will try to focus on the relevance of my daily work in TCU with my academic units and knowledge. And at last, I will tell something about the reflections of what I understand from my 300 hours placement, and what are the basic idea about the TCU's business and their advantage, their strength and weakness, especially. Let's have a very quick look. What is traditional credit union? Traditional credit union is the only indigenous owned credit union in Australia. We all know that Australia is being owned by the indigenous people, but at the time progress, Australia has developed a lot. But in course of time, the indigenous people could not they develop themselves, or their lifestyle is just what it has been 200 or 100 years ago. So traditional credit union is their target customer are the indigenous people, and they are trying to give the proper banking service to the indigenous people, and especially they want to bring the indigenous people under the formal banking service. So TCU provides essential banking services to indigenous people who is living in the remote communities. And a very special thing is that TCU has extended their service to the indigenous people in the remote areas where there are no other banking facilities or services are available. And more interesting thing is that TCU is owned by the indigenous customers, and it is guided by the indigenous leader who are the board member as well. So let's see, this picture is showing us the faces of the board members. And out of 9 board members, we can see that 5 board members are the indigenous people. Probably they are not having a very big idea about the banking facilities or banking process. However, they are representing a different community of indigenous people in different areas. So they are thinking the requirement of the indigenous people, their lifestyle, everything is precisely reflected in the board meeting. And obviously it must have some impact on the business process and design of TCU. Let's see what is the core values of traditional credit union. The core values is respecting the culture, definitely it is a indigenous culture and work together. We all know that indigenous people are having a very distinguished culture. So in our presentation, we can see that how it is reflected. This culture is precisely reflected in the business process, the banking facilities and benefits. All the benefits and facilities are especially designed for the indigenous people and work together. That means as TCU is growing up, it is trying to develop the indigenous lifestyle as well. So the most interesting thing is that as many branches being head by TCU, in all the branches, the staffs are indigenous, and they usually get a very good training from the TCU as well. The core objective is to banking service in the remote areas. As I told earlier, that TCU is having their banking facilities and services in the remote areas as well. Financial and digital literacy. TCU is trying to give a very simple banking service to the indigenous people, and undoubtedly the digital literacy is very important for us, as everything is getting advanced technically, and everything is getting automated. And last but not the least, TCU is a very employer of choice for the indigenous people, and the staffs who are working in TCU, they usually get a very good training after every quarter. So core strategies of TCU is improving and diversifying the financial services. As I told earlier, financial services are completely designed targeting the indigenous people, meet the changing business environment, being financially sustainable, and exploring social enterprise opportunities for the indigenous people. These are the number of branches and ATMs of traditional credit union. They are having 13 branches and 25 ATMs. The ATMs are set up especially in the very strategic point where it can be a very easy reach of the indigenous people. And the 13 branches, they are absolutely at the very remote areas like Catherine, Gapuwik, Maningrida, Milingimbi, Raminging, Minieri, Wedi. These are very, very remote areas, and undoubtedly, as we know, the other banks like NAB Bank, Commonwealth Bank, these banks are not in these areas. So traditional credit union is the only banking facilities for the indigenous people in Northern Territory in the remote areas. Let's see, this is the map of the Northern Territory, and these are representing the branch in the map. So from here, we can see that how TCU have dispersed its banking facilities to the whole Northern Territory, and it is covering the all community of Northern Territory. The main objective is not to keep anyone outside of the banking facility. Now let's have a look on the organogram. Though TCU's business is not a very vast, but it is having a very ideal HR organogram. Here there is a CEO at the very top, their chief health officer, chief operating officer, chief financial officer, head of compliance, head of IT, and branch manager. One branch manager I have found in the head office, who is leading all the branches. Head of IT is taking care of the technical difficulties and all the technical purchase. Their finance officer is under the CFO, and as I was the internship officer, so I was under the CFO as well. If we just broadly look on the organogram of the accounts department, then we can find that CFO is reporting to CEO directly, and they are senior accounts officer under CFO and accounts officer under the senior accounts officer. So as I was the placement officer, so I was directly under the senior accounts officer and accounts officer. And I have been very much grateful to the senior accounts officer, Joan Davis, and accounts officer, Joelyn, as they were my direct mentor. So let's look on the core business of TCU. So we can see that, as I mentioned earlier, that every product and everything has been designed just for considering the indigenous people and their requirement and their lifestyle. So in the personal banking, there are everyday account, budget account, Christmas club, family group account, student account, child account, and basic account. I can just tell that, look at the basic account. By this basic account, the indigenous people receive their basic card payment in this basic account, so that they can withdraw the amount as per their requirement. So all the accounts name I have mentioned under the personal banking, these are the facility and benefits for them. On the other hand, there are some other benefits like investment or term deposit and personal. There is a provision for personal loan to the indigenous people. And like any other very modern bank, TCU is giving the opportunity to its members to have the banking facilities through internet banking, mobile banking, phone banking, and branch banking. Let's have a very quick look on the rules and rules of accounts department. That is, these are accounts payable, account receivable, and revenue tracking, bank reconciliation, ATM transaction monitoring, payroll management, reporting, and financial statement. Let's start from the accounts payable. Undoubtedly, as TCU is a very diversified bank, it has numbers of vendors. These are the freight organization, staff with different sort of support, providing organizations as a vendor. So there is always a requirement to make the payback to these vendors. So that is the usual duty under the accounts payable work. Account receivable and revenue tracking. So another very critical duty of the accounts department is to account for and track receivable things, including outstanding invoices and any required collection actions. Account receivable is responsible for creating and tracking invoices. On the other hand, bank reconciliation is a very important part. So there are transactions, lots of transactions are taking place through the 25 ATMs. So there are withdraw from the ATMs, and customers can deposit money in the ATMs as well. So performing reconciliation is the daily task of the accounts department. Members of TCU, TCU are submitting checks in different branches. So tracking the checks and having the reconciliation is a very important part. And at the end of the day, it should be balanced properly. And ATM transaction monitoring, as I mentioned, that TCU is having 25 ATMs across the whole Northern Territory. So accounts department daily reconciliation, ATM-wise withdraw amount and transaction charges, and prepare a report accordingly. Payroll management, TCU is having around 80 staffs in the head office and across the whole 13 branches. So after every fortnight, they are having their payments. So payroll management is another very important task of the accounts department. Reporting and financial statement preparation is another very important work of the accounts department. So the primary reason accounts department collects and data properly in the accounting software is to prepare financial report that can be used for budgeting, forecasting, and other decision-making process. In addition, there are other reports are needed for communication to board of directors and other stakeholders that play a very important role in business. Okay, so and let's talk about my major responsibilities. So so these are the activities I did in my 300 hours placement. That is, prepare the daily statement and journal, reconciliation and keeping record for future audit, daily report and invoice check, payment to suppliers, checking yearly financial report, petty cash account, payroll management, and other duties. So as I told that I worked under the accounts department, so I used to process the daily statement. My Usually my mentor copied the documents and ATM transaction report and other statements and a list of journals produced in an Excel spreadsheet in a specific folder. So my everyday duty starts with using these reports and prepare a report on the reports and ATM transactions, and I prepare a journal. Then my mentor, then I place the report to my mentor, and she confirms. When she confirms that, then I started posting these in the banking system, and at the end of the task, it has to be precisely balanced. Reconciliation is another very important part. After the input in the journal, so I used to do 2 reconciliations. One reconciliation in the final statement amount, which should be matched with the clearinghouse statement and balanced. Another reconciliation is the GL balance, which is GL number is 3.3.4, from where TCU pay out the amount to the members, to the vendors against their submitted checks. In this record, I had to check the amount, checks in transit, and necessary cases I had to coordinate with the branch management department. Also, keeping record for future audits. So at whatever I'm doing, any input in the journal or any automated report I fetched from the system, I used to keep the screenshot of everything, and I preserve this in a specific folder, just for the record for future audit. And the daily report check. Daily report check was another very important task I did in my placement. And then I checked various reports daily to confirm that such things as TCU's trial balance was properly balanced. Besides, the checking covers other reports had no variance, and report on members' accounts that were not overdrawn. And these are very, very sensitive checking. And if I found any deviation, that my duty was to inform this to the higher management. And I didn't get a lot of chance to work with payroll management, but my mentor one day showed me how it worked. So that is a very good thing. And another very easy work was the petty cash account. It was a very crude manual process just to count the petty cash account and the day-to-day purchase, like the tea bag, the coffee, or any food items they purchase for the staffs. These are being spent from the petty cash, and at the end of the day, it has to be well balanced. And other duties is a very crude manual work, like scanning, filing, and all these things. So I used to enjoy that work as well, because this is a part of the accounts department. Okay, and at the time of I work with my mentor under the accounts department, I found the relation with my study topics of a schedule. I found that accounting principle, double entry, bookkeeping, financial statement checking, bank reconciliation, these are the very important study materials in my Masters of Professional Accounting. And I found the same reflection in my work. And sometimes it is related with the management accounting, as I had to calculate the profit and loss calculation, corporate accounting, deferred tax assets and liabilities consideration to understand clients' financial report as well. And also there is a 2 very important subject in my professional of Masters of Professional Accounting, and these are the commercial law and Australian taxation law. So I found that contract offer and negotiation part, client engagement and contracting in my work during my placement. And under the taxation law, I learned goods and services tax, which is known as GST. So for every transaction or every payment, I had to calculate the GST. And if I talk about the reflection, that I had a very good time. One day I had a very good time with the CEO, and he taught me what he usually do in the board meeting, how the negotiation took place and how they make the decision and everything. And work culture of TCU is very fantastic. Everyone is very friendly. There is no racism. The indigenous people are very much supportive as well, and I had a very big respect for them as well. And one of the main learning of my placement is that learning about the banking software. So they used to use a very different software which they purchased from the external source, and I became very much proficient with that software. So I hope that in future, if I work in any other organization, so it will not be a very big trouble for me to adapt any banking software. And I found that TCU is not at all aggressive in their business plan. It doesn't mean that they make profit every year, but they are more focusing on the customer service rather than making profit. So when I talked with the CFO and my mentor, I told them to be little more aggressive, and they should expand their facilities and product every year for the management, for their clients. And last but not the least, it is a very big surprise for me. I never found anything like this in my organization earlier in my country. And that is the morning tea. So wherever they have any occasion, they always have the morning tea to celebrate that. The celebration is something like that. Someone passed 10 years working in TCU. Someone is having a birthday, so they always have a morning tea for that. And as long I was with TCU in the 300 hours, which took me 3 months to complete that, I just completely found myself as one of the very closest, very permanent staff of Traditional Credit Union. And at last, again, I'm saying that I'm feeling very, very good as I completed my placement from there. And again, thanks a lot to my unit coordinator, Ms. Rupali Mistro, and placement officer, Janine Bowen. Thank you very much.